Welcome back to Nothing But Nets. We got the full crew today. I got everything. I got John from Everything BK Nets, and our boy Dylan Nets Press is back. Dylan,
What's going
it's
on?
good to have you back. I know you got a lot going on, but you must have been a happy camper yesterday. The Nets
Very much so.
blew a 17-point lead to the Hornets. It looked like the game was over. D'Angelo Russell looked like he was going to win the game that I talked about. You know, he's going to have 30 one night and win you a game single-handed. That looked like it was about to happen until they couldn't do anything right in the final 4 minutes. I'll start with you, Dylan. Give me your thoughts, not just on the closing of the game yesterday, but what that means for them and the status of their tank, if that's what you want to call it.
First and foremost, the Raptors. Thanks. I was really hoping for them to pull out that win yesterday against Washington. That would have solidified us as the fifth best odds for first. But they ended up losing. We're a half game back from the fifth spot. Thankfully for us, the Raptors have one of the easiest schedules in basketball for the remainder of the season. They play us twice. They play, I believe, 3 or 4 bottom 6 teams over their last 19 games. So there's a chance for us to land. There's a real chance for us to land the fifth overall pick odds by the end of the season. So it's looking much better. We play, I believe we play the Lakers and Cavs over our next 2 games. There's no reason we shouldn't be on a 9-game losing streak. And within those 2 games, we should have the fifth pick. So, everything is going according to how it should have been going since the start. That span where we went, 7 of our last 9 with wins, that really hurt us. We really should be talking more so about potentially being the 4th pick, more so than the 5th pick. But at this point, I said it in the beginning of the season, as long as we were bottom 4, I think we have a good chance for top 3. I don't see any difference really with 5. So I'm hoping that, the lottery system goes in our favor. But at this point, we're doing what we can. And hopefully it comes down to us winning the lottery at some point, whether it's top 3, top 2, first overall. Top 3 has to be the goal. So I'm hoping that's where we land.
I want to ask you a question, though. Like, we call it a tank, but is it actually a tank, or are they just really bad? Because, like I said, D'Lo was cooking them. They're not really tanking. They're just, like, really bad and losing. You know what I'm saying? Like, they played Cam Thomas. They played Clowney. They're bringing all these guys back. They still have D'Angelo Russell on the roster playing for reasons I don't quite understand. Is this a tank? Are they tanking, or are they just like this? They're trying to win, and they're just really bad?
I think towards the end of it, they figured it out. Like Cam Thomas, his 4th quarter was abysmal. I believe he was 0 for 4 from the field. He got blocked on the game-tying shot. Realistically, D'Lo is somebody who is really hurting us in these moments. So it was good to see him with the ball out of his hands for that 4th quarter. But I think they have a good understanding of it now. It's long overdue. Just lose the games. It shouldn't be that hard. This roster is really not that good on paper. So, these last 19 games are crucial. Unfortunately, we play Dallas twice, which I do see those both being wins. How I have it listed right now is I think we finished with 27 wins. There's a couple of games in between. I think we play Washington twice, Dallas twice. New Orleans within the last 4 games of the season. I think they'll sit Zion by then. So there's a couple of games that I have that are still probably listed as wins, but overall, we're really just fighting with Philly right now. We have one of the tougher schedules, so there's no reason that we shouldn't be at 5 when it's all said and done.
I have it up here. Toronto's schedule is by far the easiest. Even their difficult game, one of their difficult games is Dallas, which is like, it's not that difficult. Dallas
is not at all.
Yeah. So the other game they have 2 with Washington, 2 with Charlotte, 1 with Utah, 2 with us, 2 with the Sixers, and 1 with the Bulls. That could, like, that is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 games in which you would expect them to at least go 5-5 because they're all tanking too. You know what I'm saying? So you got 5 there, you got a possible 6. I mean, Toronto is going to pass us and win, like, by accident. I didn't initially realize how easy, how soft the schedule is to close out the season for them. And then it's just fending off Philly because Philly's full in the tank too. And Philly has reason to tank. But I think all things considered, we're not in bad position for the tank to considering where we were just a few weeks ago. After we won 7 of 9, it looked bad. I was just going to start rooting for wins. And then I started rooting for wins, and they went 0-5. I was like, all right, I guess I'm rooting for losses again. And they've managed to lose the last 2. So that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, realistically with Philly, though, and Toronto, you actually kind of want Philly to win those 2 Toronto games because Philly's neck and neck with us, and Embiid's done. They're sitting Maxey and Paul George today against the Jazz. Like, they're buying into tanking. Their pick is top 6 protected, so they actually need to at this point. So they're definitely the biggest threat at 5 with us. Realistically, we want Philly to beat Toronto, and hopefully Toronto wins the rest of those tanking games. But it's definitely going to come down to what happens with Philly. It's in their hands more than it is our hands. So as long as we keep losing, we just have to hope for Philly wins.
Let me get to John. John, give me your thoughts on last night's fourth quarter collapse. I think we were all pretty confident they were going to beat Charlotte when they had that lead. It's like, it's going to be hard to blow this to Charlotte. But they did. They managed to blow the game to Charlotte, which I believe you guys are in favor of. I think that was good. I think we're all in favor of them losing the rest of their games the rest of the season. I think we're all in favor of that now. But give me your thoughts on where we are in the tank and just on the fourth quarter collapse. Really, it was like a 5-minute collapse. It was the second half of the fourth quarter where it just all fell apart. They couldn't even get a shot off.
Gary, Dylan, always great to talk fun basketball with you. Listen, like I said, ever since we got away from that half a game play-in potentiality, Operation Damage Control has been a success. This tank this season has not been very successful because the owner, the GM, and the coach have been on completely 3 different planets. You see different visions. Jordy, like, he believed that whoever's on his team was going to compete, fight, and get into a play-in. I mean, the month of February, we had an above 500 record, so that's not tanking. That means you thought you had a chance to sneak in a very bad East. But just like Dylan said, it seems a reality check has happened. Maybe Sean, Joe, and Jordy opened a bottle of scotch and like, hey, we're a half a game out of a playing spot, but if we reach the play-in with this team, let's say the other teams just drop to us and we get in the playoffs and we lose our top lottery pick. That could never happen. If that happened, this would have been the worst tank in NBA history. But now things are starting to change. Reality has come back, and I think this team has just woken up to reality that this is not the core that is going to be legit 2 to 3 years from now. And it's good to see that they gave this game up last night. Listen, it's hard to lose to a team that has worse competition to you, but I kept saying, why are we doing these other tanking teams dirty work? They're resting all their best players or wherever the young cores are to put garbage on the court, and we're just beating them and bumping up our stats. But how does that benefit us? It doesn't. So when we have a very tough schedule coming up, losing this game could be what changes our whole lottery pick trajectory. So I'm glad that this happened because now we're in reality mode, we're in business mode, and quite honestly, D'Lo, he should be rested or sent off to Rio at this point. He is not helping us whatsoever. So if you rest D'Lo, Claxton, Johnson the rest of the way, this iteration will get us exactly the results we need, which is protecting that lottery pick and getting in the top 6. I think top 6 is very realistic, and we somehow crack top 3. This Operation Damage Control might be what saved our whole season, but there's still a lot of work to be done. But I'm glad this finally happened because this team, if they made the play-in, we could have screwed ourselves out of getting a potential lottery pick. And given what we gave up to the Rockets, that would have been utter failure. So I'm glad that things are finally back up to where they should be, but still a lot of work to be done. We're not out of the woods yet, boys, but let's just hope that they continue to do this because we need an actual core to beat other teams. I think when we lost to Washington and Portland and Detroit, I think the organization realized, damn, they may, well, besides Detroit, those other 2 teams may not be good teams right now, but they have way younger cores than we do, and we need to start that process because we're a lot of steps behind. So good sign last night, but let's finish strong and protect that lottery pick by any means necessary.
John, I want to follow up with you on Cam Thomas. Thomas, we know what he can do as a scorer. I mean, I know his 3-point shot really hasn't been falling consistently since he's gotten back from injury, but we know that he can shoot the 3 at a decent clip. His mid-range game and his ability to finish out the hole, get the bump, finish, get the N1, which he doesn't get any whistles still. Hopefully he gets whistles at some point, but we know what he can do as a scorer. But he's really taken a step forward as a playmaker. What does that mean to the Nets moving forward, and what does that mean for him monetarily, like financially? Does that increase his value?
Great question, Gary. And I think right now with Thomas, the rebounding and defense is not coming back right now because he had a long layoff, right? So what he has shown us is the offensive and playmaking ratio is what he's going to kind of hang his bread and butter on as far as the contract negotiations go. And the last 2 games, he had 6 and 7 assists. That's great development. I think Thomas is finally starting to trust his team within Jordy's system. Yes, he knows he's the best scorer on the whole damn team, but you can't be a ball hag anymore. You have to show the maturity aspect of your game. And ever since Jordy's taken over, Thomas has been very mature. He's been finding players on the court. Last night, he had 2 guys doubling him, and instead of chucking the shot with like less than 5 seconds, he found Zaire in the open court to knock a 3 down. That's a great sign of development for him. And if Thomas could keep up this maturity factor, I think it gives him a decent bump. I heard from Brian Lewis that some discussions could be around a $20 to $22 million contract, which is a little surprising, but you and I said 25, 26 would be a good high for him. So
you guys went 25. I went closer to 30. I think 20. Well, continue. We'll get into that in a second. Continue.
Yeah, if it's something around 20 million, 25, 26, it's going to be because he's made adjustments on what he does besides offense, the playmaking, rebounding, and defense. And obviously the defense rebounding isn't there yet, but the playmaking is definitely taking some strides. And if you get another shot creator in this draft, let's say lottery, Thomas has to show you, I have to make up for my lack of defense sometimes with elite playmaking, and he's showing you that. So if he keeps this up the remaining 19 games, it's definitely going to play a factor in him getting a potential bump because he has to show you he can be a leader on the court just by making better passing decisions when he gets double teamed. So good for him. I think last night was a little down on the assist side, but he gave you a few buckets. So hopefully he continues to find the balance within all aspects of his game, but the playmaking should definitely give him a slight boost because he needs that at this point. He's fighting for a contract, and it's good that he's shown you some of that since he's come back, but he's got to be a little more consistent, that's for sure.
Let me get to Dylan. I want to bring the same question to you. Cam's improvement as a playmaker, as a distributor, has it added to what he can expect to make this offseason? And what does it mean for the Nets moving forward? Can he be more of a combo guard? Can he play the point in spots? What does it mean for the Nets, and what does it mean for him financially?
I mean, these last 19 games are really going to determine it. Like, he's got to show the consistency on both ends of the floor. The scoring has taken a dip since he's been trying to play make. Can he do both at the same time is where it's really going to come down to. And so far here, it hasn't really shown that he can be a 25-5 type of guy. It's really more so along the lines of like an 18-6 or a 25-3. So he needs to kind of show the consistency on both ends as a playmaker and a scorer that we haven't really seen yet. But these last 19 games are going to determine whether or not he gets the payday or not.
To be fair, he's only playing 28 minutes a game or so. He played 29 last night. If he was playing 35, he would up his scoring a little bit. I think 25, and if he's playing 35 minutes a game, 34, 35 minutes a game, I think 25-5 is fair. I think assuming he's healthy and he's not battling the hamstring, he's playing. I think like that's fair production. And if he is doing 25-5, and you could sign him to $22 million, he becomes a very. And I hope Breezy's not listening because it's going to upset him. He becomes a very attractive trade piece, does he not?
Yeah, 100%. Like I've said throughout this entire process, Cam Thomas is in a very similar position to what D'Angelo Russell was when we first had D'Lo in his first stint.
Yeah.
Right. He was the guy that, came out of nowhere, looked to be a star. He made an all-star game, but eventually he was used as a trade piece to get Kevin Durant. So, it comes down to if they feel that he is the guy to be a piece on a contender. And again, from a non-biased standpoint, I don't think he is. He's very one-dimensional in his game. You need guys who can be two-way players. You need guys who can be 3-and-D players. And I don't think Cam Thomas fits the mold of either of those. So eventually at one point in time in the near future, I definitely can see his name being brought up in trade conversations, especially if you land 2 top 5 picks over the next 2 years. Those are the 2 building blocks. It's really not Cam Thomas and Nick Claxton at that point anymore. So, depending on where the picks land and how they progress, Cam Thomas is going to be the first name that gets brought up in any trade for a superstar when the time comes.
I certainly agree, especially if you get him on a team-friendly deal, which it looks like. This is my question. I want to put it back to you. What's the likelihood? If I was Cam Thomas, I would strongly consider this. I know you're going to want to look at the 4-year, $90 million contract or whatever, because that changes the life of you and your family. forever.
Mhm.
But a 1-year deal for $25 million. If I threw out a Cam right now, play yourself for 1 year, come back to free agency next year, revisit free agency next year when more teams have more money and you've established yourself as a 25-5 guy. Is that a tempting offer to him, or do you think he definitely wants the long-term money?
He's definitely going to want long term. Any player is going to want to be more solidified and comfortable with what they're going to be making. So to me, realistically, right now, I have him listed at around an $80 million contract on a 3-year deal. It's about $26.6 million a year. I think that's more than fair. It's definitely going to come down to, how Brooklyn wants to position his financials to see when he'll fit in terms of a trade when the time comes. So, I definitely think it's going to be around that 25 to 27 million mark. But I don't see him getting 4 years. I see it more so being similar to a Jalen Green where he got 3 years.
Exactly. I proposed that when I was talking to Gary and Pete actually brought it up that maybe there could be a shot that Thomas does take a qualifying offer because he missed a chunk of the season, but that wouldn't benefit Marks and wouldn't benefit Thomas. And if Thomas can get his playmaking right, it does make him a little more valuable. I agree. The defensive thing is what he's going to ultimately have to figure out some way, somehow. But if you could get him for like a Jalen Green 3-year contract with an option, that gives us flexibility and versatility to figure out his future and our trajectory at the same time. So if him and Marks can agree to some type of middle tier contract, it's definitely going to benefit us and set us up long term as far as when is the right time to make those bigger moves. And if Thomas is a part of that, being an asset, you definitely want him under contract at least. So if he takes a qualifying offer this summer, I think that's a mistake, especially when next year other teams could have more cap space than us. So that's something to look out for if they can't agree to something.
So I think he becomes invaluable. If he is producing, if you get him on a $22 or $26 million a year deal, and he is producing 25-5, I think he becomes a valuable piece in a trade for a superstar. It's like, okay, I'm giving you Cam Thomas back on a good contract. I think that's valuable, right? And then it becomes a trade piece with him and Nick Claxton. There's your contract swap. Now, Claxton's got to stop sucking. Nick Claxton sucked again yesterday. He sucked almost every game except for like one recently. And again, this isn't as bad, but I'm going to keep doing this. Nick Claxton, 29 minutes, -4. Day'Ron Sharpe, 19 minutes, +1. Again, this isn't as stark as it's been in the past, but again, Day'Ron Sharpe is in a positive, Nick Claxton's in a negative. This is not a one-off. This is a trend. This is nearly every single game. I've done this for the last 20, -1 or 2. Literally. Nick Claxton is detrimental to your team being on the court is detrimental to your team. John, you've laughed at this, and then you say I want to trade him to the Lakers. With Jackson Hayes playing better, why would the Lakers be interested in Nick Claxton?
First, can I just say, how is it possible he's a -4? They didn't even have a center last night. They had Taj Gibson, the grandfather, and he had a +7. How does a grandfather have a +7 over a young 25-year-old? Explain that to me. And this other guy, Moose Diabate, he wasn't even on the team till like 2 months ago, and he had 15 rebounds. Claxton, I understand we had to throw the game, but dude, you got to at least show a little defense or something, man. Like Claxton's had one of those up and down seasons for a guy I've ever seen get rewarded $100 million with no accolades to his name. Like, he has one game where he has 10 assists. He has another game where he gets clowned by a dude who's not even a center. And Gary, that goes to your point. Why would the Lakers want him? Well, let's just say the Lakers just lost LeBron James to a groin injury for a few weeks. And if he's not healthy and Luka's dealing with some ailments of his own, they don't have a real sense. I know Jackson Hayes is playing well right now,
James,
but playoffs.
I know that you can play James as a big, but James is not sitting there on the dunker spot, right? Even if he's technically your 5, he's not playing like that. He's not sitting on the dunker spot, right? So what I'm saying is, look, I think with Luka, Claxton has value. But Jackson Hayes is playing better, and maybe that's because he's with Luka now. Look, Jackson Hayes is just kind of a rubbish Nick Claxton. But he's playing well, and Nick Claxton's playing like garbage. So if I'm the Lakers, I was interested in Claxton, but the more I watch him and the more I watch Jackson Hayes, I may say, screw it. I'll just stick with Jackson Hayes.
Yeah, you really don't want it because, like I told you before we came on the show, playoffs are a completely different animal. And Jackson Hayes got thrust into this because the Mark Williams deal went to hell. If Williams was on that team, if Jackson Hayes is probably just seeing backup minutes at best. So yes, he looks good with Luka. I mean, how many guys has Luka made look good in his career? A lot of guys. So if he gets a Claxton on this team, like I told you, Gary, With Claxton, unfortunately, you have to get 2 stars on the team to really get him to hit his full level. We're not in a position to do that right now because we don't have a core. The Lakers, they have LeBron. They could have him for another year. They have Luka. So
you can't get 2 stars because you're paying him like a star. You're paying him $26 million a year. How are you going to sign 2 stars? You need to develop one organically. This Claxton contract, you just got to get rid of it. Just get rid of it.
right,
I don't
that's
care
why
what you get in return. Just get this contract off the books.
that's why the Lakers still make sense. If LeBron is injured, if he doesn't play well in the playoffs, they get out early. They have to get a sense of this summer. The options are very limited. There's Miles Turner, a potential sign and trade, but the Pacers might want to retain him. You have DeAndre Ayton, who they probably don't want. You have Robert Williams, who's very injured, and then you have Claxton. Claxton out of the bunch is probably the most healthiest, and he fits a defensive system with LeBron and Luka. So if they retain LeBron, you get Claxton. You have a little something there for Luka's future on that team. So if we have to take on some expiring deals and a Gabe Vincent, Rui Hachimura, and second picks, like you said, if they don't want to give us a first form, take the seconds and run with it. Getting Claxton's contract off the books and Cam Johnson as well will position us financially to be very flexible for the next 2 to 3 years because we won't be attached to no long-term money. We could kind of right the ship any way we want to, but it starts this summer. We're getting Claxton and Johnson off the books because they're getting cooked right now by dudes who weren't even on the team on these other teams. Like, that can't happen. That's why they should be rested right now. That's why Marks is kind of being an ass a little bit. He should be resting these guys. Instead, you let them get embarrassed. So if the Lakers are in a bind this summer and need a center, Nick Claxton's right there. So I still think this positions us better to do business with them because they're more of in a bind than we are right now.
We'll get to that later. I want to get to this. Let me ask this question. Does Sean Marks view having Claxton and Zaire as a piece to try to get Ja here? Like he'll trade Cam Thomas out as the piece to get Ja here to buddy up with his friends Nick Claxton and Zaire Williams. Is that why? I mean, that's what is he not going to trade Claxton because he sees Claxton as a way to get a superstar, John Morant, here?
I don't know about Ja, man. He's dealing with a shoulder injury right now, and that was the shoulder he had surgery on. And I told you.
So you think Sean Marks, who does nothing but go star hunting, doesn't want John Morant?
No, I definitely think he'd want him, but right now, if there are other better star options available that are more healthier than Ja, I would consider moving Claxton for everybody at this point. Like, if Claxton need to get Ja, obviously the conversation changes, but Ja needs to show us he's healthy right now. He's not been healthy this season, and his numbers have really gone down. So if we're keeping Claxton to get an injured superstar, that's more of a problem than I think we want to admit right now. Yes, getting the names will be important, but if he's not a healthy superstar, what are we doing at this point? So I would not let Claxton be the sole reason why we're keeping him because we need to get a superstar. It's really, we need the flexibility right now. And instead of putting ourselves in a bind with an injured superstar. So I would lean away from Ja at the moment, but I would take him if he's a realistic option for us. But if he's not, we got to get Claxton out of here, man. He's just holding $27 million on the books. And the LBL, yes, the Lakers are in a bind. Who do they have to play center besides Jackson Hayes? Alex Lynn? Again, is Alex Lynn a center in the future?
This is what I'm not understanding. If Jackson Hayes is playing as well as Nick Claxton, why are they bringing in Nick Claxton's $27 million contract? Like, I understand Jackson Hayes isn't good. Neither is Nick Claxton. Every time we talk about Nick Claxton, you laugh at his production and how he got big boyed by Bismarck Biyombo, right? Like, I want Claxton to play well so we can trade him. Like, if you're noticing how much he sucks, the Lakers are too. And they're going to, his trade value plummets every day. You keep saying Jackson Hayes is garbage. Yeah, Jackson Hayes ain't very good. But right now, there's probably not much difference between Hayes and Nick Claxton. And Hayes makes a hell of a lot less than Claxton.
Can Hayes guard 1 through 4, though? Probably not. At least Claxton's showing you if he has stars around him, it makes his job a lot easier because nobody's expecting Claxton to do anything on offense but catch lobs, which Luka and LeBron can do well. So if you got to think about environment situation as well. We don't have no superstars. They do. So they have an advantage with writing Claxton.
And I think he makes sense for them to a degree. He can pick and roll really well with Luka. That's the offense he needs to be in. An offense with Harden, and Kyrie, right? Like that kind of offense, right? To cover up his watch. And the Lakers have that. But he sucks. Like, you're seeing it. Dylan, let me bring this to you. Is Nick Claxton playing himself out of any trade? I've said this all along. There's one team we can trade him to, the Lakers. Is he playing himself out of any and all trade value, and we're just going to be stuck with him for the duration of this contract?
I don't know. In all honesty, he does have a friendly deal where it does go down each year.
Goes down, yeah.
It's gonna allow it to be more visually, it's gonna look better on paper if you do look to trade for him as an opposing team. So to me, I don't think his value isn't where we thought it would be by this time in his career, where it's like 2-3 first round picks. It's definitely not that. But a first round pick and a salary filler, maybe a young piece included, I could see it. So I do think that there are going to be, a select few amount of teams that could look to add him, whether it be, San Antonio, Atlanta, the Lakers. I could see those three teams being interested in him, as well as Sacramento, now that Sabonis is potentially looking to make his way out, depending on the direction of where they go. I definitely see maybe 4 or 5 teams that could show interest in Claxton, though, within the next year.
Well, you said so. I want to get into this now. We're talking about Sacramento as a team. Sacramento, apparently, De'Aaron Fox said the only demand he ever made in Sacramento was for the Kings to acquire dynamic wing players, such as Brooklyn's Cam Johnson.
Interesting.
Let's say this is true, which it seems reasonable. Sean Marks, explain yourself, pal. Like. I just don't understand. There was obviously teams that were interested. If De'Aaron Fox went to Sacramento and said, "Get me Cam Johnson," that seems like an easy task. He didn't say, "Get me Giannis." Like, how am I going to get you Giannis? Right? Like, how would I do that? Right? He said, "Get me Cam Johnson," who's on the market and available. If this is true, let's just say for the sake of this conversation that this is true. How much did Marks drop the ball here? Like, this is such an easy demand.
Yeah, I mean, he 100% dropped because look where they are now. Like, realistically, even if they got Cam Johnson and they struggled, is there still a world where Fox asks out by the deadline? Like, maybe. But even if not, you still have capital from Sacramento, which could make your world easier if you ever do look to trade for a guy like Sabonis. We don't know if De'Aaron Fox would have stayed there past this season, even if they got Cam Johnson, right? Say they shit the bed and they're like a 9-10th seed and they're out in the play-in, he could still request out. He could still decline the extension that they were offering him. Realistically, though, it seemed like his mindset was set on wanting to go to San Antonio. I'm pretty sure he said it actually yesterday in one of his interviews that it was always San Antonio. There was no list. He wanted to be where, he felt his career was going to be successful, and he wasn't willing to help out an organization that he knew he would have nothing to do with after this trade. So a little bit of a selfish approach, but at the end of the day too, when you're in an organization that does nothing for you to help you, right? They got Sabonis, to put alongside Fox. They drafted Keegan Murray. They refused to trade him for anybody. There's not much help over there. Now they're stuck with Zach LaVine's contract and now DeMar DeRozan. So they're pretty much just the Bulls, and Sabonis is a slightly better version than Vucevic when, Vucevic first got there in Chicago. So it's, there's a lot of issues going on in Sacramento in terms of their front office. It would have been nice to have their picks knowing that there was a high likely chance their organization was going to fail. So I definitely think he dropped the ball on not making any moves with Sacramento. But I also do see this now being a window of opportunity where San Antonio is going to be in play for Cam Johnson even more. Simply because we heard it at the deadline, right? There was rumors left and right about Cam Johnson in San Antonio. De'Aaron Fox wanted Cam Johnson in Sacramento. He is now in San Antonio. I definitely think those talks are going to be revisited by draft night because San Antonio has 2 potential lottery first-round picks as of right now. I think they have pick 12 and 15. So Atlanta's pick is 1 outside of the lottery. It should drop into the lottery, whether it be, 12 through 14. So I definitely think that's a conversation that will be had on draft night. Realistically, though, if you can flip Cam Johnson, as of right now, we have pick 22, 23, and 25. Say you package Cam Johnson with pick 23 and, Philly's top 8 protected first-round pick in 2027. Throw it in. Go for it. Get the
I want to ask you this because me and John talked about this when you were off. Sean Marks kept Patty Mills and let Bruce Brown walk because he likes him. He gave Joe Harris a massive contract because he likes him. I agree with you. San Antonio trade makes sense for both teams. I don't think it would be San Antonio that holds the trade up. I think it would be Sean Marks because he likes Cam Johnson, like he said. I'm asking a serious question based on Sean Marks' history. What's the possibility that he's not going to trade Cam Johnson for anything less than a Mikal Bridges haul because he likes Cam Johnson?
Marks is an alcoholic at that point.
I think that they have an understanding of where they need to go. They're playing hardball, simply trying to redo some form of a Mikal Bridges trade. It's not going to happen. Like,
No.
for example, right, DK Metcalf just requested a trade. The Seahawks wanted a first and a third round pick 2 days ago. They're now dropping their asking price to a second round pick. It's going to be very similar with Brooklyn. They wanted 2 first-round picks. In no world is he worth 2 first-round picks. And there are certain fans out there who are so stubborn saying that they should stick with the asking price so this way they don't look weak. That's not an excuse to not move a player. If he's not a part of the timeline and he does not fit what we're trying to do here, which is tank this year, land a good pick, and potentially do it again next year, you're out of your mind. Like, get him off the team, move up into the draft, solidify yourself with youth, and then let see how the team plays next year. If they're overachieving next year like they did this year, and it looks like there's no world you're going to land a top 4 pick, by all means, go out of your way to trade for Sabonis. Move Nick Claxton picks and go get Sabonis. I'm all for it. But if you're tanking next season and you start off horrible, stay the course. That's it. There shouldn't be any debate on whether or not this team should tank this year or next year. This year should have been definite. They did a half-ass one. Next year, as of right now, it should be definite. But if they land a good pick in the top 3 this year, they're able to move up into the lottery again, between picks 10 through 14 and draft another lottery pick. See how they play. If they play good and they overachieve, go for a star. Then I'm not upset with it. But if they, start off slow, just stay the course, finish the 2-year rebuild, and then look to add stars the following offseason.
What if we kept Cam Johnson and acquired Zion Williamson? It would be a guy you want to put around Zion.
Who, Cam Johnson?
Yeah. You'd want to put shooters around Zion.
If you want to be a second-round exit every year, I mean, that's cool. It's a cool idea.
We're keeping, in my theory, in my master plan, we're keeping this pick so we can still get a top 5 pick and Zion, and now you have something to build around.
I don't think New Orleans gets off of Zion without giving up that first pick that we have.
Yeah.
Because realistically, this is how it is with Zion, right? You can either package up 4 first-round picks and contracts that fit his contract, or you can give up that top pick that you have, plus an additional pick, and then a salary filler.
John and I talked about this when you were gone. Like, they opened up the phone lines for Zion Williamson call, and there was nobody on the other end. Not one team called to check in on him. Like, I'm saying, yes, he's playing well now, but his history is his history. He doesn't play. He's fat. He's lazy. He doesn't like basketball. Like, these are all things that matter, right? Like, so I'm saying, is the asking going to be what it would be for another All-Star? I understand he's balling right now, and that's why I want him. But given his history, is it going to be 4 first-rounders, or will we just be, please take his salary and give me 2 first-rounders and Cam Thomas? Or,
no,
you know what I'm saying?
Realistically, I could see 3 unprotected first and a swap if you don't give up that top pick. Because you're still also going to have to probably give them Nick Claxton, Dariq Whitehead.
Sure, to make the salary.
Another young player. Like, you're going to have to.
What if we gave him Cam? How much value does Cam Thomas offer in a trade like that? Any?
It's going to be tough because he's not really like they have DeJounte, they have Trey Murphy, they have Herb Jones. Their real need is a big. So if they're going to make the move, it's going to be for Claxton, and Claxton's value is low, so you'd have to attach picks to it, right? So it's either doing Claxton, your top 5 pick, and an additional first, or it's like Claxton, Dariq Whitehead, potentially Noah Clowney, and 3 or 4 firsts. So there's no real avenue that I see where it's worth going after a guy like Zion. Once again, I prefer to stay the course. And if you can, pull up the comment from LBO where he's asking me.
I didn't even have my comments up. Hang on.
Yeah, I want to get to that because when I explain it, I think it's a little bit more of an understanding. But if you look at, for me personally, I don't want Sabonis as of right now. But if, say you draft a Cooper Flagg, an Ace, a Harper to put alongside Cam Thomas, and you can keep Cam Thomas without having to give him up for Sabonis, it's an interesting trio to look at. Sabonis solves every problem that you have with Claxton in terms of offensive rebounding, defensive rebounding, playmaking. I think what he brings to Cam Thomas's development is also an improvement, right? Cam Thomas is really being forced to try and play make, which he's not really good at. Like, he has some solid games here and there for playmaking, but he's primarily a scorer. And I think you're going to have to kind of just come to terms with that. And with what Sabonis can do, he's probably the second best playmaking center in the league behind Jokic. So I think that takes away the stress of playmaking on Cam Thomas's end and allows him to develop more as a high level scorer. Say you grab Harper to put alongside, Cam Thomas and Sabonis, you now have a fun trio to work around. Say you put Ace or Flag next to Sabonis or Sabonis and Cam Thomas. Again, you have a very fun trio to work around. So I think the idea of Sabonis, knowing that he's already used the Jordi Fernandez systems, the way that he coaches, he's a better rebounder, he's a better playmaker than Claxton. At that point, you're just looking to fill out the rest of the team with 3-and-D defensive players to make up for the fact that Sabonis isn't a better defender than isn't a better defender than Nick Claxton, and Cam Thomas is still a defensive liability. So I think, there's ways that it works. There's ways that it doesn't. I wouldn't be upset if you go after Sabonis. I still prefer to not go after him as of right now because I want to tank next season. So again, that's why I put out the idea where if you land top, 3 this year, you get the guy, you see how they play out the beginning of the season. You trade Cam Johnson to move up into the lottery to grab a second lottery pick. You see how those young guys with Cam Thomas and Nick Claxton play next season. And if they're overachieving by the deadline, go for a guy like Sabonis. It doesn't hurt because you would still be able to keep a ton of picks to then move on to another superstar when the time comes to move Cam Thomas, right? Because say there's a world you draft one of, again, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, or Cooper Flag. You put that guy next to Sabonis, and now you have Cam Thomas on a decent enough contract with other young players and a shitload of draft capital. That could be your in for another superstar to form a big three. So there's routes to it that works.
I want to address this. You mentioned Sabonis. That was actually the next topic, so this makes a smooth transition. I'll start with – well, you can start. I'll move to John. The Brooklyn Nets are the favorite to land Domantas Sabonis. He's not with the Kings next season. If he's not with the Kings next season, per Bovada official, Brooklyn Nets at plus 1,600. Now, that's not great.
No,
plus 1,600 aren't great odds, but they are the favorite. There's no one with better odds than them. Would you want to reunite him with Jordy? I guess you've already answered that question, but just give us the elevator pitch summary on why you wouldn't want to do that. Dylan?
It's really the only reason I wouldn't want to do it is because I truly am more invested in next year's top 4 than I am this year's top 3. Like, next year's top 4 is absurd. You have Darren Peterson, AJ DeBansta, Cam Boozer, Noah Ament. 3 of those guys probably go above the top 3 picks this year. Like, Darren Peterson and AJ DeBansta probably go ahead of Cooper Flag if you combine the drafts. So, to me, next year's draft class, their top 8 is more valuable than this year's lottery. Let's just put it that way. This year's draft class is by far deeper. This is the class that you want to have multiple first-round picks in. So, to me, next season should be focused on bottoming the hell out. Like, be the worst team. Solidify yourself to a point where the worst pick that you can get is the 5th overall pick. Like, to me, that's what I want to see. Because if there is a world, let's just say we do land Ace this year, and next year you put yourself in a position where you can draft Darren Peterson. You now have Darren Peterson, Cam Thomas, Ace Bailey, Noah Clowney, and Nick Claxton, right? That's fun. That's intriguing. You still have, all of your picks. You have financial flexibility. You can make moves for a superstar once the young guys develop. It's an interesting route, right? On the other hand, say we don't land top 3 this year. Again, I think your plan should be to bottom out next year. Next year's draft class is a must hit. If you don't, you are then forced to move all of your draft capital, try and force, a contender on this fan base once again that'll likely fail. It's just not worth it. So to me, the 2-year rebuild and then go for a star is still the route that I would go. I'm not opposed, though, with doing this 1-year rebuild currently. If you land top 3, see how they play. If they overachieve, trade for a guy like Sabonis at next year's deadline. That I'm not opposed to.
Do me a favor. I know you're not in favor of getting any of these guys, but just power rank these guys in the order in which you would want them. If you were to, let's say Sean Marks said we're 100% getting a superstar. Sabonis, Zion, LaMelo. How would you power rank those three?
Well, it depends first. Who's the key piece in the trade? Is it Cam Thomas or Nick Claxton?
Either way, you can trade either one of them.
If your key piece is Cam Thomas, give me LaMelo. If your key piece is Claxton, give me Sabonis or Zion.
Okay. I think
it just depends on the fit, right? You don't want to trade Nick Claxton for LaMelo to then have LaMelo and Cam Thomas. It's not going to work, right? Same thing I don't want to trade Cam Thomas for Zion or Sabonis because they're not going to fit alongside Nick Claxton. So to me, it depends on who the key piece in the trade is. If it's Nick Claxton, give me Sabonis or Zion. I think they're better fits alongside Cam Thomas. But if it's Cam Thomas, give me LaMelo. I think he's a better fit alongside Noah Clowney and Nick Claxton.
Let me bring this to John because John's been quiet. John, so like two things. You didn't give us any thoughts on the De'Aaron Fox thing.
Right. Yeah. You asked how much did Sean Marks drop the ball. He dropped the damn ball a lot. There were 11 teams interested in Johnson. I get it. The guy had 3 great months. He matched the Kevin Durant stat number. But let's point out the obvious. Kevin Durant's been dominating the league for how many years now? One of the top 8 greatest scorers of all time. Cam Johnson is nowhere near top greatest of anything. He had 3 great months. He was averaging 13 points for most of his career. So all these NBA owners are going, I'm not going to give you 2 first-round picks and a prospect because the guy had 3 great months. I'll give you a first and maybe some expiring salary because I'm generous. But Marks is like the cookie monster. He values cookies like this guy values draft picks. Like it's a mess. At the end of the day, if you told me I'll give you Johnson with 2 first-round picks, I'm hanging up the phone. I'm not even talking to you for like the rest of the trade deadline. That's how bad Marks is. He overvalues role players so badly that everybody like us can see all their warts, but we can still try to find middle ground. Marks never tries to find middle ground unless he's straight up just trying to get rid of a player for nothing. Like Ben Simmons. That was nothing for Harden at that point. And so that was a huge mistake. And Claxton as well. He wants 2 first-round picks for Claxton. This guy's getting cooked by players who aren't even on the team. Like, it's wild to me just how much Marks overvalues players and doesn't know their right values. So if you can trade Johnson this summer in the draft to move up with a team like the Spurs to get their pick and we attach 2 firsts to Johnson, it's great business. You know, De'Aaron Fox probably still wants Johnson. He's partnered up with Wemby. They need a solid wing right now. And if we have to take back a Harrison Barnes and their lottery pick to make it happen, it's great business. Get his money off the books. This guy's gonna be 30 years old next year. He's gonna have great chin hairs already. Like, what are we doing? I get he said the guy's a leader. You know how many vets you can find to say they're a leader? You can find a lot of them in this market. So I hope Marks wakes up and moves him on draft night if the opportunity presents itself, which to Dylan's point, it likely will. Now, transitioning to Sabonis, look at his stats, man. You know that he is first in the NBA this year in rebounds, 14.1. Claxton is 38th in rebounding. Sabonis is 16 in assists. Claxton is like way higher in assists. And field goal percentage, he's averaging 59.6. I mean, Sabonis is in the top of the league right now in the numbers that Claxton should want to produce. And Claxton's making way more money than Sabonis is right now, which is wild to me. So if you have a chance to trade for Sabonis, he's on a 3-year contract right now. So if you don't trade for him now, like Dylan says, you could trade for him in a year if he's still on the Kings team. And honestly, if you have to trade a Claxton, a Johnson, and 2 picks to make it happen, book it and get it done. Because a Sabonis on this team with solid players would put us in a hell of a lot better position than Claxton is right now. So I would definitely be up for the Sabonis thing if we have the right pieces on this team to recruit him.
Sabonis turns 29. I like Sabonis. He's proven now for, 6-7 years to be between 18 and 20 and 12 to 14 rebounds, right? 20 and 12, let's say, consistently-ish. There's a lot of value in that. He's 29. Does he really match our time frame? And as he's shown, he hasn't impacted winning because despite his great numbers and playing with De'Aaron Fox, they haven't won anything. They've only made the playoffs once.
It's a great question, but you also got to look at that bringing in DeMar DeRozan was a huge mistake. His style doesn't fit Sabonis' style.
They missed the playoffs. They missed the playoffs last year, John, without DeRozan.
Yeah, but why are you blaming Sabonis? Gary, Sabonis is one of the best players on the team.
I'm not blaming it. I'm asking a question, John. I'm asking, does he impact winning? Because it looks like he doesn't.
if you have the right pieces, of course. And he's more of a traditional big than what we got on this team. We have a rim runner who gets cooked by guys that are 36 years old in Bismack Biyombo. I don't see Sabonis getting cooked by Bismack if it's him versus him in a one-on-one affair. But Claxton certainly can. So I agree with you. The age is a little worrying factor, but this guy probably has around 4 to 5 good years left in him. And if we get the right young pieces, you could bring a Sabonis on because he will handle the big matchups a hell of a lot better than Claxton is right now. So I would be open to it, especially if Sabonis keeps doing what he's doing. But Gary, let's call the obvious. The Kings have been a horrible organization for how many years? They've been through 6 or 7 coaches. Their organization, I will say this, they are the Western Conference version of the Brooklyn Nets right now. They have an owner, Jim, who doing what the hell they're doing. Seems like ours is starting to wake up finally, but they have a lot of inconsistent pieces. So a guy like Sabonis, who's doing well, mind you, is on a bad team right now. If he gets on a team with way better pieces, I think his numbers will impact winning because they should. They really should if you think about it at the end of the day.
All right, let me put the same question to you. The 3 guys that are available, potentially available, LaMelo, Zion, and Sabonis. Power rank them in the order that you would want to bring them in.
Yeah, I guess if it's a tricky one. If for me personally, it would probably have to be the Zion, Sabonis, and LaMelo. Like, as much as I would want Sabonis, you do need a star on this team. If you don't get that star in the draft, between Sabonis and Zion, who has more star power? Clearly, it would be Zion if he gets himself healthy. But if Zion can't stay healthy, I would move to Sabonis and LaMelo. He probably has the best marketability out of those 2 guys. But if he can't stay healthy, what are you doing at that point?
Stay healthy either. Yeah, Sabonis is the only one that plays.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough question. I think Zion has the cheapest price tag, so I would go after that. Like, I think you get – like, if I said to you, you can trade this year's first-round pick and Claxton, would you do it?
If that pick
New
is out of
– would potentially have 2 top 5 picks. You know what I'm saying? That's why they would do it. They would have to pick twice in the top 5 in this draft.
Yeah, if the pick is outside of top 6, I'm open to moving it for Zion. Because if it's like a common Maliwaka center that they would probably need, you package that with maybe a Cam Johnson instead of a Claxton, that deal works too. So there's different ways of getting Zion. Like you said, he's probably the cheapest option. That's why I probably ranked him a bit over Sabonis with the star power. But at the same time, if he's not healthy, I guess if you get the right young pieces, Sabonis makes sense. But if you get Zion on the cheap and your pick is out of top 6, I would do it. But if our pick is within top 6, I wouldn't go after Zion this summer. So the draft really dictates who and where we're going to go this summer for real. It really will.
Dylan, let me bring that question to you. Sacramento calls you up and says, your pick this year, top 5 pick this year, let's say it's 4. Let's say you get the 4th pick and Nick Claxton, and I'll send you Zion. What's your answer?
Nope.
Huh? Let me ask you this.
Not even close. Hang up the phone.
Zion is 24. He'll be 25, right? He'll be 25 this year. If he went into the draft this year, where would he be drafted?
Probably 3.
So I don't understand why you wouldn't trade, let's say, hypothetically, a 4th pick for him.
Probably 2 or 3. But realistically, it's just simply because I want guys who I know are healthy, guys who I know have a motivation to play basketball, guys who I know have much more room of growth in terms of development. Zion's at his peak. This is what he's done it while he's fat. He's done it while he's losing weight. This is what he does. He puts up 25 and 7. He does it on good efficiencies, but he doesn't stay healthy. So to me, give me the guys who have a chance to stay healthy, and give me somebody who you could build and market as your own. It's long overdue. Just draft. Just do it. It's not hard.
It's tough because if we're drafting 4, that means we've missed out on the Rutgers guys and Cooper. Right. Mm-hmm. So now we can throw names around. VJ, Trey. Okay. I know what I have in Zion as a player. Like I said, we're at his peak. He's at his physical peak. It's this for a couple of years. All right. Now I've got something to build around. If I take Trey or I take VJ, I'm hoping he turns out to be an all-star caliber player. I already know I have an all-star caliber player in Zion. The problem with Zion is he doesn't play a lot, right? Like we all know the problems with Zion. They are what they are. He's a physical force. He's a physical freak. He doesn't like basketball. He's fat and he's hurt all the time. Okay. So, like, now I have a gamble either way. I'm either gambling Zion stays healthy, or I'm gambling that Trey or VJ becomes an all-star player. What's the safer pick there?
Going with the guy that you can draft and develop on your own.
All right.
With the staff that we have guys who are motivators, guys who actually understand the game of basketball and can develop a skill. Like, we've seen that with role players. We've seen it with some of the younger guys. Just draft. It's long overdue. It's something that we've never seen in Brooklyn. We have not seen a lottery pick in Brooklyn. And the fact that we have the opportunity to talk about potential top 5 pick in a good draft class, just keep the opportunities that you have. You traded for these picks for a reason. There's absolutely no reason as to why you wouldn't want to use these picks. Just stay the course.
If it's 1, 2, or 3, I would not make the trade. If it's 4 or higher, I would make the trade for Zion.
I don't mind it because I think VJ actually, as of right now, has more potential than not more potential, but he's more solidified than Ace Bailey is. Ace is raw. Ace is on the same status of development in terms of like Kaman Malawach. These guys aren't going to be guys who immediately make an impact to your team right away. You have to develop the inconsistencies and issues that they have with their game. So to me, VJ is a guy that honestly has the higher ceiling from the start of his career than Ace Bailey does. Ace has the higher ceiling if he's developed properly, by far. He's Hall of Famer written all over him if he reaches the peak of what he should be. But VJ is more solidified coming out of college right now. He's more well-rounded. He's more efficient.
You see VJ, you see a guy with a finely tuned NBA-ready offensive game, or do you just see an athlete?
I see both.
Okay.
I do.
All right.
I'm
worried about
the ability. He's got the rebounding ability. He's a two-way. Yep. He is like what you want in a player at the shooting guard position. A guy that can play defense, a guy that can score the ball. And he matches every criteria in terms of what you would want as a two-way player.
And he's a hard worker, too. He puts himself in good game shape. But I agree with you, Gary. If you get the 4 to 5 pick, you have to consider options, right? Is there a starter that I could maybe trade the 4th to 5th pick for? You consider it. But I was with Dylan, too, with I think Edgecombe and Ace are on similar trajectories where they both need the right coaching staffs. They both need development. Physically wise, if you get Ace, he's going to have to be on a weight regimen program for the first year. Like, he's going to have to build up muscle and all that. So if you have the right coaching staff like Jordy, I think he could take an Edgecombe or Ace's game to the next level and get them stronger. Both of them can get much stronger, and I think both of them have the work ethic to get stronger. So it really depends on who we get. And if you get 1 through 4, I think Jordy can develop 1 through 4. But I would say that Cooper and Harper are probably the most game ready out of all the prospects right now. So I don't think they would need a whole lot of development over time. But I would say 3 and above, though, I agree with Gary. There's going to be some type of long-term development there for sure.
Steve Nash was a motivator. You see
how hard
that man clapped.
The guy was clapping. Good job, you guys lost 12 games. Hey, why does somebody give me a high five? I remember that. That was a nightmare. Oh my God.
I want to touch on 2 more things. I want to get in on the tank. Oh, I wanted to ask you guys first. So, if we drafted 4, and we'll get into this when we know when we're drafting, you guys would both go VJ over Trey, correct?
Well, in all honesty, before I even answer it, I think there's more of a chance that VJ goes 3 as of right now than Ace.
Wow.
Really?
It really depends on the team. If Charlotte is at 3, they are 100% going VJ Edgecombe.
So you think 1 and 2 are written in stone, right? It's Cooper 1, Dylan Harper 2, and then okay.
Yeah, 1 and 2 are written. There is still debate for 3. I do have I've been making big boards mock drafts for the last 3 months. I actually just put out my first official big board maybe a week ago. I updated it last night. I have VJ at 3. I have VJ at 3 depending on the team. I think as of right now, he's like I said, he's a more solidified all-around player, somebody that you can plug in immediately. And especially if Charlotte lands at 3, if they're trying to keep a guy like LaMelo and build something around Brandon Miller and flip Mark Williams for some pieces, then VJ Edgecombe's the guy. Like, that's who you would want there, because Ace and Brandon Miller can't coexist. It just doesn't make sense. If you put an athletic two-way guard next to a high-scoring playmaker in LaMelo and a two-way forward in Brandon Miller, I think that makes a lot more sense for them than Ace Bailey does.
What do they want a big though, Dylan? They got rid of Richards and they're ready to send Mark Williams packing. If they're letting go Williams this summer, don't you think maybe they would go for a common Maluak, a big?
I could see them potentially trading him to move up into the draft, maybe for a guy like, Thomas Sorber, Derek
Ooh.
Queen. Like they could try and do something, to move up. But realistically, I think their biggest need as of right now is shooting guard, especially if they decide to keep Mark Williams. Like there's no definite that he's traded this offseason. The trade didn't go through. He has health risks. People may not want to take the chance on that anymore, or it may have lowered the cost to where they can't get a young player in a first-round pick anymore. So there is a world where he can stay. And if you have Mark Williams, Tejan Saloon, Brandon Miller, VJ Edgecombe, and LaMelo as your starting five next year, that's interesting. That is a full youth movement of high potential players. So I definitely can see them going VJ over Ace Bailey.
Interesting.
What are your thoughts, John? Your thoughts on that, and then Dylan, I want your thoughts just on Trey, because I watch Trey Johnson every game. I'm a Longhorns fan, so I want your thoughts on him, but I want John to respond to that first. Kind of like rank those guys where you would take him if you were Marks. If you were not that you were Arshawn Marks, but if you had his job, VJ, Ace, and Trey, what order would you take those guys?
I would definitely, let's just say Ace was 3. I would take Ace 3. I don't think Cooper, Harper, and Ace, they're all going to be 1-3. It would be crazy if that switches somehow. I understand Dylan's point, though. They have Brandon Miller, the Hornets, too. If they had the third pick, maybe they go for Edgecombe. But damn, you should have passed up somebody like Ace Bailey if you're a team like the Hornets. But I would rank Ace as 3rd, Edgecombe as 4 over Johnson. I understand Trey Johnson is probably one of the best bucket scorers in the league, but you already have Thomas. So if you pair the two of them together, who's running point? Who's running shooting guard? I understand that Thomas should get run, but Jordy seems like he doesn't want to give him run. And Trey Johnson's a 2 and a 3. Are you going to convert him into a 1? Like, you're going to have to get a point guard. You have to find a way for those two to coexist. So there could be a little mess there. At least with Edgecombe, like Dylan said, scoring guard. Maybe you do convert Thomas to a point guard combo and see what that works. I think Edgecombe and Thomas is complementary. What Edgecombe has is what Thomas lacks, which is athletic explosion at the rim, and he can score in a variety of ways, and he's a good defender. Thomas is not a good defender. He's improving, but if Edgecombe could bring the defense and athleticism that Thomas doesn't have, I think that's a better complementary combo than Johnson and Thomas for me if I was ranking them. So it would be Ace, Edgecombe, and Trey Johnson 3 to 5 if I was Sean Marks. And I would do a hell of a better job than Sean Marks.
Let me bring it back to Dylan. Dylan, real quick, I wanted your take, just your thoughts on Trey Johnson as a player. I don't want to give away too much what I think. I watch him every game, so I know him better than anyone in this draft. I know his game better than Ace or Dylan. I watch him every night in plays. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on Trey Johnson? I'll just let you cook here.
I think he is a more solidified player than Cam Thomas was coming out of the draft, right? Really, he's a high-level scorer, but he's also not as bad as Cam Thomas was in terms of playmaking and defense. Like, he's not a cone. So, to me, this is very similar to Cam Thomas. I don't see him being top 4 because he's mainly known as a scorer, and there's some things to his game that he needs to work on. But he's still a top 8 prospect. So, like, for me, I have my big board up right now. I have Flag at 1, Harper at 2, VJ at 3, Ace at 4, Trey Johnson at 5, Kaman Maluak at 6, Kasparis at 7, Jeremiah Fears at 8, Con Kneppel at 9, Colin Murray Boyles at 10. I'll just do the top. I can do the lottery, actually. So that was the first 10. I have Liam McNeely at 11, Derek Queen at 12, Austin Newell at 13, and Igor Demin at 14. So that's my current big board of what I think the lottery could look like. It really just depends on the team again. Like, there's some teams that truly don't need a guard whatsoever. I'll pull up what the lottery currently looks like, but let's see. As of right now, if there was no such thing as a lottery and the draft went as is, right? You have Washington at 1, they're going Flag. You have Utah at 2, they're going Dylan Harper. You have Charlotte at 3, I still have them going VJ. You have New Orleans at 4, and this is where it could get tough. Like, do they pass on Ace Bailey because they have Herb Jones and Trey Murphy? Like, they have youth in their wing department. They also have Brandon Boston. Like, they don't really necessarily need a wing. I could see them going with a guy potentially like Kaman Maluak or Trey Johnson at 4 over Ace Bailey if there was no such thing as a lottery. Again, just based on fit. with how they currently are, there's a world where Ace could slip to 4 or 5, right? Toronto at 5, that's where I could see Ace going, and then Brooklyn at 6. You missed out on Johnson, you missed out on Edgecombe, you missed out on Harper, you missed out on Flagg, you missed out on Ace. I could see Kaman Malawak there at 6. So there's different. It all just depends on the scenario. Like I'll do one random simulation, and I'll just do the first 5 picks. So Brooklyn lands at 4, Philly got 1, Utah at 2, Chicago at 3, Washington at 5. So for this instance, Flagg's going to the Sixers, Harper's going to the Jazz. Here is where I could see Ace going 3 to the Bulls. Brooklyn at 4, you go Edgecombe because you just have to go with best available. Washington at 5 is where I could see Kasparis going, right? 6 is Charlotte, and 7 is New Orleans. One of those 2 teams is going Kaman Malawak or Trey Johnson. So that's where, the difference is in where a player could go. It's not really set in stone on just a specific pick. It's more so the team that's available. So Johnson can go as high as 5, as low as 9, right? Malawak could go as high as 5, but as low as 11. There's a lot of possibilities and scenarios depending on the teams that are there and the players that are there that kind of determine where the pick is going to end up.
What would your top 6 be for us if you're Sean Marks? I'm gonna pass the GM cap to you for a second. Your top 6 if you were drafting with 1 through 6 picks. If you were Sean Marks,
if I had 1 through 6, first overall I'm going Flagg. Second overall I'm going Harper. Third overall I'm going Ace. Fourth I'm going VJ. 5 I'm going Kaman Malawak, and number 6 I'm going Jeremiah Fears.
Wow. The Fears one surprising. I thought Trey Johnson. I had Kaman Malawak 6 for me and Trey 5 for me. But Fears, he's a kid that could literally be the lightning bolt nobody's expecting. And I got to give a shout out to Ice. Ice says that Fears is probably the second best point guard behind Harper. So Jeremiah Fears, if he does well in this little tournament, I think his team made the tournament. So if he performs well, he might crack around that instead of top 10. That's very interesting, Dylan.
I currently have him solidified top 10. He's been going off the past 4 or 5 games. He's leading his team into potential tournament play. I definitely think his stock is rising, and Kasparis' stock is falling. He's had a couple of inconsistent games. I could definitely see a world where Kasparis drops to like 9 and Jeremiah Fears jumps up to potentially 6 or 7. So there's a lot of room still for movement. In terms of 1 and 2, it's solidified. But there's definitely rooms for improvement from 3 through 30. So it'll be interesting to see. Like Colin Murray Boyles was a guy that I originally had projected 8 through 12 before the season began. Started off slow, wasn't looking great. South Carolina was losing. I had him out of the lottery. Now I have him back at 10, right? Same for Con Kneppel. He was projected like 6 through 8 at the beginning of the season. Then he went all the way down to like the late teens. Now he's back up into the lottery. Same thing for Liam McNeely, a guy who's projected top 10. Fell out of the lottery, now still projected lottery. There's a lot of movement. Igor Demon wasn't projected lottery at all before the season began in college, made his way all the way up to top 5, and he's now back down for me at 14. So there's always room for movement. The tournament is going to be where it really elevates your draft stock. And the problem is this year specifically, Texas probably won't be in the tournament. Rutgers definitely won't be in the tournament.
Oh, what's your thoughts on that? Texas is out unless they really make noise in the SEC tournament. Texas is going to be out. Yeah, I figured as much.
Yeah, and that's what sucks about the tournament is it's like there's so many teams this year with great prospects that we're not going to be able to see play in the tournament. Like Baylor may not even be able to play in the tournament, right? So you may be missing out on VJ, Ace, Dylan Harper, Trey Johnson. That's 4 of the top 8 picks potentially that you're missing out on watching in the tournament. So it's unfortunate, but that's just how it works. Asa Newell and Georgia, I don't think are going to be in it. South Carolina is definitely not going to be in it. Oklahoma, they're 50-50 right now. So you may not even see Jeremiah Fears. Like there's genuinely half of the lottery that you may not even see during the March Madness tournament, which sucks, but
wild.
That's what happens when you don't win in college.
I got LBL here. Sorry about that, LBL. I didn't check my messages. I wouldn't check. I apologize for that. I'm just seeing your message now, so I sent you the link as soon as possible.
Hey, LBL.
What up?
What's up, fellas?
Let me get your thoughts on. You're with me. You see VJ as more of a raw prospect than Trey and Ace, which I agree with. Let me get your take on those 3 guys.
Who are you saying? VJ,
Trey, VJ, and Ace.
Yeah, I would have Ace ranked first, because I'm always looking at highest ceiling. And then next I would probably have Trey, and then I would have VJ. Even though VJ could pass them once they're in the NBA, but I'm saying ready now, I would think Trey would be more ready because of the way his game is. He looks, like when you look at guys, and especially when they're young, and you look at them like how long they've been playing basketball. A lot of times, Trey looks like he's been playing basketball for like 15 of his 18 or 19 years. So a lot of times that has a lot to do with it. Whereas VJ looks like a guy like he was probably kicking around a soccer ball somewhere, and then someone said, "Hey, come on and play some basketball." So he's got some instinctual things to catch up on that I think that the other two probably already have. So that does make a difference to me. So I think the way Nate has it is the way I would have it going into the draft.
See, the only rebuttal that I have to it is VJ is already better as a playmaker, as a rebounder, and as a defender. And I think his upside is more than Trey Johnson's. So I think that's where it's going to be looked
Okay,
at from draft night.
I disagree with that as far as the playmaker. I think that
Really?
yeah, because I think that Trey definitely has shown, that he can play make. So
let me put it back a little bit. Like he can play the point in the sense that he can beat the press and he can handle the ball. He really doesn't have much vision, though. I mean, like I agree with Dylan in the sense like he's a scorer. Like in
He's
the same
Cam
way
Thomas,
that,
but more polished.
like kind of, yeah. Like he can handle the ball, but he's not really creating offense for others. There's a sense of tunnel vision with him, and yes, he can beat the press and he can handle the ball. Like in that sense, he can bring the ball up the court.
Yeah,
but is he making anyone else better? Is he creating offense for others?
But see, remember, my whole scenario based on this, like just like that order that Nate has up there on the screen, is I'm not building a team around Cam Thomas.
Yeah.
Cam Thomas is already on our team. He's there, but I'm building a team, period. So if Cam Thomas has to go out to get sort of what we want, then so be it. If one of these three guys is the replacement for Cam Thomas, so be it. I just, like I just put in earlier, I don't think you build a team based on what we've seen how Cam Thomas plays. I don't think you build a team from scratch starting with Cam Thomas. That's just me. So I don't believe in that. And I think that you got to take these guys. You got to hope, like what Dylan says, we develop the one guy we do have, the one or two guys we do have, and then next year you get a superstar. You hope to get a superstar. But that's what I'm saying. You got to build it slowly. This stuff with all of this. You know what's so funny, Gary? Everybody talks about, and all of us get on here and talk about, oh, we're so much into winning. We're so much into winning. We're so much into winning. But if you have guys like say we got Cooper, for instance, right? But we still lost, we still only won 20 games. If we lost 20 games, if we only won 20 games, but Cooper played like out of sight, we would all be loving it. We would all have our Cooper flag jerseys and we would be loving it approaching a new draft. So that's the thing. Everybody is taking like the wins and losses and acting like that, like that defines us as a basketball fan, but it doesn't. It's just like you want guys on your team that you like watching play, and you want them to win, and you want them to ultimately win a championship. But I'm fine with us taking the 2 years in a row and just developing pieces.
Here's my point, right? Like tanking again. Maybe it's our best. Maybe it's the best move on the chessboard, right? So you want to throw away the season, put the franchise in disarray to go from getting a 9% chance to getting the first pick to a 14% chance of getting the first pick. It's like, all right, like maybe, but you're only increasing your odds by 5% by throwing the franchise into disarray. It's like, I don't know that that's the best strategy.
I'm hearing what you're saying, but I'm thinking, like, what is not disarray this year? or
I get
the
it. No,
year. I'm saying,
I agree. This
I'm
is
saying,
a
or the
unique
year
situation
before, or the
because
year
we have
before
no
when they
good
thought they
players.
were going to make the play-in. I'm saying, like,
I'm with
like
you. I'm with you. I'm with you.
we're settling for some really shitty teams. You know, like to say, oh, Jordy's this magical magician and he can take anybody and make anybody into a star and all that stuff. And that was my point. That was my point to just segue into what I was saying to Dylan about some of these guys, like in terms of the Sabonis and the this and that, like Sabonis had freaking Mike Brown. He had Darren Fox. He had DeMar DeRozan. He had Keegan Murray. He had way better pieces than we have right now, or that we'll probably have in 1 year. So getting Sabonis, it's like, well, then what did he do? He had pieces when he was on Indiana, right? He had decent pieces. They weren't the best. But what I'm saying is we got to stop coveting all of these guys and saying, oh, well, when we get them under Jordy, then that's going to make the big difference. You know, it's not. It's not. It's just getting the most talent and then him fixing his coaching around the talent and then making it work. You know, it's funny because nowadays when we look at everything is built upon systems and stuff, and it's like, well, under Coach Jordy's system, you want to show me a really good coach? Show me a coach that just is handed to players and now he makes it work.
No, like I agree in the sense that like we don't have anything but if I was Portland, for example, or if I was Toronto, for example, I wouldn't tank. I don't think like Toronto.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Like I said this before. I said this before they even got before they drafted Klingon.
Oh, the Blazers.
Yeah. Before they even, I'm saying, freaking what's the name should have been fired. Freaking Billups. He's a freaking horrible coach.
Well,
How
they're
do you have?
they're
having
one
a
of my
great year.
favorite teams to watch right now. Portland's
Yeah.
playing pretty well now.
Yeah, no, Billups
Finally.
has shown that he's actually got it in him. But the problem is again, when you acquire guys like DeAndre Ayton, who already had poor attitudes on a winning team, and you now bring him to a developing team and a rebuilding team, that doesn't look great at the start. Right now, Billups has these young guys like Anthony Simon, Shaden Sharp, Scoot Henderson, Donovan Clingan, Termani Kamara. He has all these guys bought in. Denny. Now they're starting to look better. So it's like when you have some veteran guys on your team who don't buy into the system, then that's where you start to see some of the the issues. But now that they pulled it together, DeAndre Ayton's been out for a while. Is he even playing yet, or is he still out?
He's out with a calf injury right now.
Yeah, like notice how they've been better without him. So to me, it just depends on the players that you have and if they're buying in. Younger guys will buy into your coach's philosophy because they drafted you. You now feel that you owe them something, right? You brought me into this league and you started, making me money. I'm gonna give
Hang
you
on,
my all.
I agree with you up until now, right? And this is the problem, like I see with my Longhorns in football. With the NIL money, these guys are getting rich in college, right? So you didn't take me from a college dorm room, and let's say I came from less than great upbringing. Like I was making a ton of money in college, and I'm making a ton of money now. Does that change the attitude of the rookie?
More so the overall aspect of being drafted. Like you're putting your franchise in my hands. I'm gonna put my all into it. Right? Before NIL, it was, yes, now you're giving me financial freedoms and things that I never had. But currently it's more so, all right, you're putting your organization in my hands. You're drafting me this high. You think I'm the guy. I'm going to go in for it. That's what Donovan Clingan's doing with Portland. That's what Scoot Henderson's now doing with Portland. He was a top 3 pick that everybody was writing off as a bust after his first season. And he dropped, fucking 40 on us and career high in 3-pointers as well.
Yeah.
Like, these are guys that some guys don't develop in a month. It takes a year. It takes 2 years. It takes 3 years, right? Cam Thomas, for example, he's still not fully developed, but he's still at the point where you could kind of put him along the lines of a borderline star. So it all depends on the team that you have and the coaching staff and the developing staff that you have around him. When you had stars in Brooklyn with shitty coaching and a shitty staff, Cam Thomas didn't develop. Get rid of the stars, bring in Jordy. Cam Thomas looked much better in the small sample size of games he's played this season. So it all depends on the coaching and the staff that you build around him, but it also depends on the veterans that you bring in, which is why I do think Chauncey Billups is a really good coach. Like he's turning these young guys into something, and now they're fighting for a play-in spot. So,
John, I wanted to get to you real quick. You sent a message here. One of the last topics, pull up NBA. I got the Tankathon. What did you want me to look at on the Tankathon?
Look at where we are with our bottom picks, how those are lining up, because there's some interesting
the bottom picks.
developments.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now they're 22, 23, 25. We'll be taking 3 out of 4 picks. But to be fair, the Knicks are injured right now. There's not a whole lot that separates them from 23. Milwaukee sucks. They are all winning, but Milwaukee's not separated much from, the teams ahead of them like Indiana and Golden State and Minnesota and Detroit. And they're all kind of – so hypothetically, we could be – those could get better. Those could improve for us. So what did you want to –
Yeah, just to make those thoughts. And the Rockets as well, they ran into a slump. They were starting to ride it. They just lost Amon Thompson to a nasty ankle injury, and he was a good anchor for them on the defensive end. So the Rockets too. But you don't want the Rockets to fall behind the Clippers. I think if the Rockets fall behind the Clippers, we get a 29 pick instead of where they're at around 25. So you don't want the Rockets to be too bad, especially with the Clippers, but you want that pick to maybe drop 1 or 2 slots. But I think the Bucks pick could definitely drop. They face the Cavs tonight on a back-to-back. So that could be interesting. And the Pistons, Pacers, the Timberwolves, and the Warriors especially are all on Bucks' heels right now. So the Bucks have, I think, one of the 4 remaining toughest schedules. And they face the Pistons twice to end the season when you kind of want to manage some players. So it'll be interesting to see if that Bucks pick could fall down to maybe around 20, 19, which I think would be the best case scenario. And the Knicks pick could fall to around 22, 23. So if the picks are bunched together like that, I think it gives us more power drafting around that corner, because that's where like the opening bracket is around the 20 slot. And maybe we could trade up as well, like you proposed in the beginning of the show. So I think those picks are actually lining up a lot better than they were to start out the season. Let's just hope the odds fall in our favor there, because those picks could be more valuable than some people want to think right now.
John, also just to let you know too, there's 5 teams in between Houston and the Clippers. So realistically, you have Milwaukee, who's 2 games behind Houston. You have Indiana, who's 3 games behind them, as well as Golden State. And then you have Minnesota, who's 3.5 games behind Houston. If there is a world those 4 teams can jump up ahead of them, even Detroit is 4 games behind Houston. So if there is a world 3 of those teams can get in, that's the pick that you're looking at now at around what, like 18 through 20. Hopefully. Yeah. You hate to say it, but you're almost expecting at some point Giannis gets injured, because it happens every year at the end of the season. That would be huge for the pick as well. But with the way that the picks are aligning, right, you have 22, 23, and 25. You can't think that Brooklyn's selecting 3 picks within 4 picks.
Let me say, I want to ask you about that. That was my next question, Dylan. So there's a couple of options here, right? Do you think they draft with all those picks, or do you think they trade to next year, or do you think they try to group them together to move up? My preference would be to group 2 of them together and trade for a pick next year. Is that possible? Another 2026? Or do you think they'll try to group them together, bunch them together, and move up back into, let's say, the top 15 or so? What are your thoughts?
Realistically, I see San Antonio as a potential trade option. I see OKC, depending on how far down the 76ers pick go. Like say OKC gets like 9 or 10. I could see that pick being available. I believe Miami has 2 first-round picks, one of them being lottery. I could see them being a possibility to trade up with. Houston being another team to trade up with. Atlanta's got 2 picks this year. I could see them potentially being a trade-up piece if you want to move Nick Claxton. But realistically, to me, my ideal scenario would be if there is a world San Antonio lands a second lottery pick, because they did originally have 11 and 12. Now they have 9 and 16. I would expect Orlando to get above Atlanta. I would expect Dallas is probably screwed. Phoenix. Yeah, so I mean, you may see them at 15. If they land a lottery pick in 15, I would package up Cam Johnson, one of the 20s picks, and a future first to move up into the lottery with the Spurs. And what I would do then is take the 2 lottery picks, take another first-round pick, and then trade my last first-round pick for a future first.
Wow.
So
let me ask you a question, Dylan. If this Milwaukee pick becomes hypothetically 19 and the Knicks pick becomes 23, So they both get a couple. They both get a little bit better. How much more does that? How much more does that add? Like, how much more value does that add if those picks get just a little bit, three spots better or so from where they are right now?
Yeah, they're extremely valuable. I mean, if you look at the range of players between 18 and 23 compared to the players in range of 24 through 30,
Yeah,
there's a
Yeah.
pretty significant gap. There's a lot of juniors and seniors that could be going in that 24 through 30 range, which could be really nice for a contender, right? So, I mean, just looking at Tankathon, I personally don't have my draft. Actually, I'll just go to my draft board because I don't see Sergio, what's his name, Delaria being a first-round pick. I've never even heard of the guy, but Tankathon has him there. Realistically, between the picks of 17 through 23 for me, I have Nolan Traore, Ben Seraph, Jace Richardson, Carter Bryant, Hugo Gonzalez, Danny Wolf, and LeBarian Filan. The picks between 24 and 30, I have Thomas Sorber, Ado Thiaro, Johnny Broom, Boogie Flan, Nick Clifford, Ian Jackson, and JT Toppin. So there's a little bit of a gap in between potential and talent in terms of those picks. So to me, if you are able to move two of the picks that we currently have 2 to 3 slots up, that's going to be a lot difference in value. So, let's just say we land picks 18, 21, and 24, right? If you package up 18 and 24 plus Cam Johnson to move up into the top 12, do it. You get 2 lottery picks, you get another pick in the 20s, and you get a second-round pick. That's 4 players you can draft, 2 of which are lottery, and then another one you're getting in the 20s.
Let me bring LBL on because I haven't gotten your thoughts on this. So we got 3 picks right now.
Yeah.
They are 22, 23, and 25. Although 2 of them look like they may improve. Like the Bucks pick and the Knicks pick look like they may get better, realistically get better.
Okay.
So let's say we're drafted 19, 22, and 23. Hypothetically. What do you want to do with those picks? Do you want to use them all? Do you want to sit and draft them? Do you sit and draft with each one of them? Do you want to combine them and move up? Do you want to try to move into next year's draft? What do you want to do?
Well, it's you're on the way too early show right now.
Sure.
You really
Well, I mean, look,
you want to see
we've lost 7 games in a row. It's never too soon to talk about
it.
Right, we're game planning. Now we're in business mode, LBL. So these are scenarios we all going to be talking about a lot more now.
You definitely want to look and see who's available, but what I'm saying is I'm not in love with the second half of the draft. So if I could move up, if I could move 2 picks to move my second pick up, I would do that. So I would take the 3rd and 4th to see if it could move up by 2, right?
Yeah.
And then the last one and then the second round, I would take both of those and trade into 26 draft. That's
something we haven't talked much about, but something I'm interested in. 26 draft is good, and I haven't looked at these guys yet. Like, I'm still on the 25 guys. I'll look at the 26 guys after this draft is over. But the 26 draft, I keep hearing huge things about it. We only have 1 pick in that draft. We have 4 in this pick.
Yeah, that's why I want like, just an unconditional pick, and we don't even know what the team is going to do yet. So, but I still want, it's better to have 2 than 1. But as far as for what you're saying, as far as these guys, and then here's another thing that I wanted to point out: the tournament isn't going to really. What's funny is, to me, the tournament isn't going to really push guys up or down as much. Sometimes it tends to push them more down, but it doesn't. It doesn't tend to push them up as much. Remember when what's that guy that was on the was it Jared Vanderbilt or someone like that had such a great, there was somebody that had a really great Final Four. We could even take a guy like Hunter, right? A guy like Hunter who was on Atlanta. Right?
Yeah, he was at Virginia when he played in college.
Yeah. When they made the Final Four, right? They made the Final Four, and
I want to say they won it all that year. Now, wasn't that the year they had Kyle Guy?
I'm saying like guys like that, they're not projecting up anymore just based on having 6 great tournament games anymore. I think the NBA has I think the scouting has gotten like way more sophisticated, that they're having guys come in. They're having some guys come in and actually play privately against other guys. and then you're getting to see who's who. So I don't think that they really depend on it. That's why these guys are shutting so many guys down, like the Sorbers and all. They get injured and everything. Land is injured, but they really can't take the chance of them hurting their stock that much more. So
Right.
so all Flan is doing is resting and making sure that that he'll be in shape enough to work out for these teams in May and June. You know what I'm saying? So I think that that's probably what's going to be the determining factor, what they see out of them. Because look, a lot of the guys don't even play in the combines anymore. You know what I mean? Those are like for the second round picks and stuff like that. So a lot of the guys don't even play in the games. Like we've had numerous years where like our top 10 guys, hardly anyone ever played at the Chicago Combine or anything else. So I think that that's going to continue, and that especially now that they have the NIL money, they're not as incentivized to do that. So and with the also with the portal, if they don't get the looks that they want, from the draft, they don't get those high spies and people saying, "Oh, well, we can promise you that you'll be a top 20." They might go back into the portal, and say, "You know what? I can make my year better by switching to a different school." So it's a lot of machinations going on there.
See, I agree to a sense, but there's also something with the tournament that does sometimes boost value. Like
It's like the playoffs in the NBA. Yeah, you
Yeah,
perform
like-
It's
well
like
in
an
the
ultimate
playoffs.
showcase. Like an ultimate
like
showcase.
realistically, say Maryland makes it in, right? Derek Queen's a 20-year-old freshman. Some people, like for me personally, I think he's top 8 in terms of talent currently in college. But because of his age and because of some of the younger guys that may have more upside, I have him currently at 12. Depending on the tournament that he has, if they make it, he can bump up into the top 10. Con Kneppel, his range is between, he can go as early as 7, as late as 13. Say he has a really good March Madness. I could see him being boosted and solidifying himself in that 7 or 8 range.
All right, you're making my point for me, because when you say Con Kneppel, there's no way I'm taking him 7. I don't care if he averages 30 a
I'm
game
telling you, dude, I'm
the
not even
whole
kidding.
tournament.
I'm not
No,
even
I
kidding. If
understand. I
OKC
understand.
lands between 7 and 9, I'm just saying Con Kneppel is one of the best.
I got to wrap this up. I want to come back. I want to get Nate on. Hopefully, I want to get in depth about the draft. Let's figure out a day to do it. But I got to wrap this up now. I got to wrap this up in 2 minutes.
Good. I was gonna say I actually may be going live on my YouTube page to do a mock draft for you guys, because
Okay.
I promised I would do one at some point. So I'm gonna try and connect, my thing to your StreamYard real quick, and we'll try and figure that out. But I may do that a little bit later. So
Okay.
if you guys want, though, not to interrupt, but I'm gonna plug my new page in.
Yeah,
I made a new
please do.
college basketball page. It's called CBB Draft U. You can find me on Instagram, giving you guys mock drafts, big boards, highlights, final scores throughout the rest of the day for games and stuff. So feel free to follow me over there if you want the most up-to-date college basketball news. The season's upon us, so draft lotteries in less than 2 months. It'll be interesting.
So the rest of the week, we got the Lakers, the Cavs, the Bulls, and the Celtics. That's what we have next week. There's no reason why we shouldn't lose 3 out of 4 there. The Bulls being the only winnable game. That would put us in real good position. That would be 9 losses in a row, and then 10 out of 11, which is exactly what the doctor ordered. Guys, John, you want to take tomorrow off? Come back Monday? Come back Tuesday? Dylan?
Yeah,
That
sure.
works fine. I'm in the office Tuesday, so we'd have to do it later if you're available. But Tuesday, Wednesdays, I'm in the office.
Yes, that sounds good.
You want to do Tuesday? What time is good for you on Tuesday?
Anytime after 7, because I go straight from work to the gym.
Well, then Tuesday we get the Nets play on Tuesday. They'll be live.
You guys want to do a live coverage game, though?
You guys want to do live on Tuesday, and then we'll
and
do a
John
show.
Rapid Wednesday.
We'll do a recap Tuesday, John. Then we'll go live with him, and we'll take Monday off, and we'll go live Tuesday, and then do a live stream for the game.
That works
Okay,
fine.
so we're doing 2 on Tuesday. Okay,
None tomorrow, 2 on Tuesday. Does that work?
all right. So I might be busy Wednesday. So if we want to do 2 that day, so okay, that works. That works out. I'm down for that.
Release
All right.
the nipple.
It's a double header, guys.
We'll do that. All right. So no show tomorrow. 2 shows on Tuesday.
Okay.
LBL, you're invited. We'd love to have you on. You can jump on for either the live stream for the game or the day show during Tuesday. We'd love to have you on.
That's Cavs, right? That's Mondays Lakers, Tuesdays Cavs. Okay.
Yeah, 2 losses. All right, guys. I gotta wrap this up. I gotta go. I gotta leave like a minute ago. All right, y'all.
Thanks.
We'll see you
Thanks, all.
on Tuesday.
Later.
Fun show.
From Texas to the world, thank you and God bless.
Peace.